Good morning. This is Judith and Desjardins in my therapy office in Santa Monica, and I want to share some experiences that I've been having that have been pretty troubling. I was diagnosed with stage 1 pancreatic cancer on October 7th, 2020. And for the last almost 18 months, I have been sharing videos of the entire process. And I've tried to be very upbeat and positive, a holistic warrior, fighting with every fiber of my body, mind, emotion, and spirit, and to present encouragement to people around the world who are fighting cancer or any debilitating illness or life-threatening illness. I think the most vulnerable videos that I've made to date were my first night in the hospital when I had to have major surgery to have my 40% of my pancreas removed, my spleen, 8 lymph nodes, had a drain tube hanging out my side. It was a very frightening experience. And some other frightening experiences were when I would go to chemotherapy, and I was so frightened and afraid as my body was developing side effects from the chemo. And then I developed blood clots in my lungs. But since that has passed, I've tried to really concentrate on living in the moment, being positive, having a rigorous schedule of exercise and cooking and preparing healthy anti-cancer diet foods. But today I want to share the not so pleasant experiences of being in recovery from cancer. Today is one of those days where I feel totally vulnerable and fragile. I actually came into this room at 3:30 a.m. this morning because I didn't want to disturb my cat, Hope. And I was feeling very frightened and like I wasn't in control of anything. And I didn't know who I was or how to deal with some of the things that come up that are flashbacks of being diagnosed with cancer. For me, it has to do with abdominal bloating and digestive problems that were the initial symptoms that drove me to visit a couple of internists to say, these are strange problems that I'm having. I don't understand them. They're not normal. Sometimes they were dismissed, but thankfully I got a referral to a gastro doctor who said, I'm going to pay attention to your symptoms, and she's the one that sent me for CAT scans and an endoscopy with ultrasound, which diagnosed that I had cancer in my pancreas. Lately, I've been having some symptoms that seem similar to my initial diagnosis. And I must say that it just shakes my very foundation and frightens me so much. Has the cancer come back? Is something dangerous going on inside my body? What more can I do than giving my whole heart, body, mind, emotion, spirit, soul to this fight to stay alive and to thrive? So I imagine that this is not unique to me. I imagine that when you are a cancer survivor, somewhere in the back of your mind, there's this sense, this fear that the cancer could return. As hard as it is to try to stay in the moment, focus on the positive, active lifestyle, surrounding yourself with love and loved ones, inside in a very deep place, there is that traumatic memory of the day you were diagnosed, of the physical procedures you've gone through. And for me, it's a terrible thought. It's a frightening thought. And a day like today, early in the morning, I had to come in here and journal and speak very closely with God and say, I need help on a day like this. I don't feel stable and secure. I don't have a secure foundation and identity the way I did before cancer. By and large, I'm very confident. I'm physically and mentally and emotionally very strong. I have guided people for over 40 years in healing and transformation. But there are times when I feel tall, tiny, like a tiny baby that's lost in the woods. In my journaling, I talked about feeling like I was a leaf separated from the tree where I grew up, and I was being tossed and turned by the wind, not knowing where I would land. And it was a very frightening sense that there are times when I lose a sense of myself and become frightened and overwhelmed. And I came in here to be private, not to disturb little Hope early in the morning. But bless his heart, that little boy is always hovering around me like a little nurse. And even though it was dark in the rest of the house and I had this door almost closed shut, he sensed that Mommy was in distress. And he came from the other end of the house and pushed on the door and insisted on sitting in here in the dark with me. And so I started to cry. I was very frightened, felt very helpless and alone, except for my little boy. And I decided, okay, I'm not going to sit here in the dark. I'm going to go back to my bed, carry little Hope with me. And I started to journal. When I'm in great distress, I reach out to God. God is the foundation of my life. It is the only sense of security and sameness that I have. When things are swirling outside of my control, when I feel fragile, and I implored God to reach out to me once again, to pick me up and carry me when I feel so small. And I poured out my heart in my journal, saying that I need help. I need to regain my sense of grounding and footing despite what's happening in the world around me. I need to feel okay that I'm frightened, that I feel little, that I don't know what's going to happen with me. I don't give up my desire to stay strong and positive in those moments. I simply acknowledge that I'm small and vulnerable. And it doesn't matter what I do in terms of my profession. It doesn't matter that I have loving people that support me. I need to regain my sense of being safe in my body. I need to trust that my body and I can work together to maintain health, to figure out how to handle these digestive problems without going nuts, without spiraling into panic or anxiety that the cancer is back. Being in recovery is not easy, let me tell you. People around the world that are in recovery will know what I'm talking about. There are days where it's very difficult to remember who you are, to live without fear, to stay in the moment. And I felt it was very important for me to share this vulnerability because it's very real, it's very much part of the process of being in recovery. Some days we can be strong and social and robust and confident, but when something triggers our initial memory of the diagnosis and the treatments, all of that can be washed away in an instant, and your body goes into the fight, flight, immobilization reaction. The memories of what you've lived through in the cancer journey are in the cells of your body, and they can be triggered by events that simulate the symptoms that you had when you were diagnosed. I couldn't wait for the sun to come out this morning. I couldn't wait to go sit out in my garden on the little polished river stones, to feel them with my feet, to sit there quietly, not some big psychotherapist, not this capable wife and mother and grandmother, but to sit out there as a wee child and feel my vulnerability and ask God to be present with me and to help rebuild my confidence and help me find my way back to myself. I had to sit on the ground. I had to feel the stones. I had to be barefoot. I had to let myself be quiet and cry and feel that vulnerability. It's very frightening to be vulnerable. But it's real. And it must be acknowledged. It is you and to push it off to the side, to deny that you're feeling that way, is how you lose yourself. I had to sit there and feel the pain in my chest and allow tears to come down and to be quiet with that feeling and to ask God to help me find my way back from this immobilized state. So I share this moment with you. I pray it might touch someone who's feeling in the dark, afraid, lost, lonely, frightened. This is real, but it doesn't have to be the story of your recovery. It's just a day in the life of your recovery. And I'm telling you, it's not only okay, but it's normal. It's natural. It's predictable. And the only way to deal with it is to be in it, to allow yourself to feel it in your mind, with your words, in your voice, in your heart center, in your queasy gut, in your spine. It's important to let it vibrate all the way down and to own it. This is part of being alive. It is part of the cancer journey. And when you can stay in the moment, embrace it, and love yourself for your vulnerability. We don't get many opportunities as an adult to be a weak child, to be helpless, to feel helpless, to experience our cerebral cortex not working very well, to feel timid, to feel afraid of being assertive, to imagine dreadful things happening. We didn't choose a diagnosis of cancer. We didn't choose the treatments. It happened to us. We were thrust into that situation, and it is traumatic. Staying in the moment, embracing the experience, reaching out to higher power, committing to live one day at a time. This is healthy recovery. I'm sending my prayers and my love to anyone in the world who is going through despair, trauma, feeling lost. I do know that there is power in acceptance, strength in vulnerability. We may temporarily be in the dark, in a violent storm internally, but as all things in nature, it will pass, it will cycle through. The next day will be different. The light will come on. Spirit will send us support systems. I love you. I pray for you. I pray for your recovery and blessings. Thank you for sharing with me today. It means the world to me to have some purpose, to share my experience that might bless someone else. Thank you.